Alrighty, hello everyone. It's that time again. That time where I talk to you guys about things you want to know about. So yeah, it's Q&A time. So this time I do have a very exciting little thing I wanted to share. I've been workshopping something with my dear patrons. And if you would like to be a patron, you can go to the link in my description. But I had a little idea where they could suggest a topic for me to ramble about at the end of my audios. And this particular time, they'd suggested I talk about GT tropes that I enjoy. And I got some suggestions for ones to talk about from y'all as well. So I'm excited to talk about that. That'll be at the end. So if you're not terribly interested in the rest of the questions, you can skip ahead. But just to let you know, that's a little exciting thing going on. Like I said, still getting workshopped. So if this is not how it works in 2 months' time, then yeah, it's just still getting worked on. It's still a work in progress. Anyway, so I guess let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, a long time ago, a very wonderful viewer of mine, Lane, had asked this question. And I forget if I forgot it the first time or if I said oh, I'll answer it later, and then I just didn't. But point being, I have repeatedly forgotten or simply omitted to answer it. It has been months now. I'm so sorry, Elaine, but the question is here now, and it's being answered now. So hopefully that makes up for it. So Elaine had asked, I have this sense of empathy that borders on unhealthy sometimes, meaning it can stress me out or even cause me pain. I can't for the life of me hurt another being, any being, and if someone does hurt them in front of me, it's like a punch to my gut. I can get so upset and ill even, and I will look at that person in a different way from that point on. That being said, at the same time, I have this interest with giants and unwilling tinies and vor and everything else. And I'm thinking, what the hell is up with that? It's so diabolically confusing. So my question is, are there other people who experience this like me? Do these things go hand in hand, like the empathy and then this giant fascination, or is it just me, or is it a coincidence on an enormous cosmic joke level? Help. I'm really curious about this. So yeah, if you guys have opinions, feel free to leave them. I am one person, and I would genuinely love to hear from you guys what your thoughts are with the concept of kind of pairing of having empathy for all living beings, but at the same time enjoying the concept of mean and cruel giants and unwilling tinies. That being said, I think I feel the same way, kind of. I don't particularly like hurting people. I really like seeing people get hurt. It's not something that makes me happy. However, I think for me, the act of one or more parties in Giant Tiny being unwilling kind of, there's a train. But it kind of helps me disconnect the scenario in my head from any sort of reality, so to speak. Though of course for me, the reason that works is because the people that I talk to about GT stuff are usually my very close friends and very kind to me on a regular basis. So having them be mean to me is an immediate indication in my head that they're not really themselves, and therefore it's not real, it's all just for fun, blah blah blah. So it's kind of I guess in that sense, it's a sort of a go ahead in my mind, just enjoy the situation, since it's not realistic and not something I have to consider with realistic standards. I mean, obviously GT itself is not very realistic, But like, you know, if I see someone being like nice or sweet and being like, hey, maybe I eat you if you want me to, then I'm always like, oh, well, you're being nice, so I have to think about this from like a perspective of like this person's being nice, and therefore like blah blah blah. And would I actually want to be eaten, or would I actually want to eat this person, or blah blah blah. So I think like having it be like a giant person being a little bit mean, in that sense, at least for me, it's like a separation, sort of. I don't know. Maybe that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't. But yeah. I'm not too sure though. Obviously, that's my account, and even I have like weird, you know, I kind of fluctuate wildly between like this is cool and this is totally uncool, so I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask. So if you guys have opinions, please do feel free to leave them. I'd be happy to hear it. And yeah. Alrighty, let's see. Our next question is quite the convenient follow-up question. It is from Zed, who asks, okay, I've got one. I know you've said in a previous Q&A that you've had some struggles with roleplay and allowing yourself to be the tiny or micro with other party, not being respectful of boundaries. So if you were a shorty, what interactions would you seek? And I'll be honest, I kind of forgot about the roleplay part when I wrote down my response here, so I just have like an actual explanation for what I want if I was short in real life. And I don't think that's what you're asking, so I'm gonna skip over it. It's not too different from what I'm about to say though. Mind you, this is completely off the cuff. So the struggle for me when it comes to, and I don't know if anyone else experiences this, when it comes to role-playing being small, is I feel like there's just kind of a lack of stuff to do. Which sounds weird because you'd think that it'd be kind of the other way around. Like the big person is having to like cater to this small person. But I find that usually it's the trouble of, do you want to be realistic and have it be like, you know, climbing up the like arm of a chair or something, or climbing onto a table, like literally takes like minutes, if not like potentially hours, depending on the complexity of what you're climbing. Do you want it to just be like kind of, I guess, speed running rules, or like, you know, kind of just get to the action rules of, I climb this thing, I crawl over that, I hide under here. Because like if it's the latter, you know, that's you can kind of just go where you want to go. If it's the former, then you're kind of just stuck doing fuck all while you wait for your, you know, roleplay self to get somewhere. And that in mind as well, it's like, it's hard to interact with someone so much bigger than you, because it's like really your options are either like do something that ultimately does not affect them remotely, or just don't do anything, I guess. Like, I guess, for example, something that I've encountered primarily as the large one in roleplay is like, if you say like, oh, give me a foot massage, it's like, how reasonable is that going to be if you're an inch tall? You're not even reaching the heel of their foot at that point. So I guess that's part of my thing, is like, I never know what to do. So usually like my preference is just like kind of being chill. And this is the same with real life as well. If I were small in real life, I kind of just want to be chill and kind of just be like treated like a normal human being, just with the addition that I'm small. So, you know, like, offer me a hand to, like, literally a hand to like get up somewhere, and then we can sit together, we can chat about our days. You know, you can drive me to the park and I'll sit in your cup holder or something. I can hang out on your shoulder while we walk. But generally speaking, like, I don't really tend to care for the concept of like, this is probably not a great thing to say. as a GT content creator, but I do really tend to struggle when it comes to like role playing interactions that are distinctly meant to be based around GT. Like I kind of just like the chill, like, oh, you're small and I'm big, okay, and like that's it. Like, we can cuddle on the couch, I'll hang out in the crook of your neck, you give me a piece of popcorn and we watch a movie together. Doesn't have to be like, oh, well, here's your popcorn, it's one piece because you're super small, and I have to eat the entire bowl because I'm way bigger than you, but you're tiny. Like, just be like, chill. So I guess that's my thing. I find it easier to be the larger party because I can kind of just do stuff. And especially because typically people can just say, I want you to do X, and I can do X. Like, I want you to pick me up, okay? Slash me picks you up. I want you to hold me. Slash me holds you. I want you to throw me like a frisbee. Okay, I'll throw you like a frisbee. But meanwhile, I feel like for me, I just, by and large, just don't have anything I really want to do when I'm small. Like, I just want to chill out. Like, that's my ideal. Just being small and happening to be small. And that's part of, I think, why I struggle with being smaller than people, because I don't think a lot of people really know what to do with that, which is fine, mind you. This is not like a big deal. But I find that like a lot of people tend to kind of expect there to be some sort of like deeper interaction going on, some sort of power play, some struggle of some kind. For me, I really don't care. I could do without it when I'm small. And if I want to do something with that, it tends to be I will do it with people who I'm already very familiar with, which is part of why I'm not mentioning more of it here, because I'm not familiar with you guys. Unfortunately. We do not know each other very well in actuality. But yeah, generally speaking, like if I want something like, oh, I want someone to like grab me and threaten to crush me in their hand or something. Not something I'd usually request, but as an example. Then, I would tend to go to my friend who happens to like threatening to crush people in their hands. Because then I can kind of initiate that and be like, hey, do you know how you like this? What if we did this? But generally speaking, if I'm just going to be like around people, especially if they're people I don't know, I'd prefer for it to just be kind of relaxed. And I don't think a lot of people know how to handle that. And also I think a lot of like macro spaces tend to be quite charged, I'll say. I feel like a lot of people go in expecting to tease and be teased, and for someone who doesn't really care for being teased, it's a massive turn off for me. So basically what I'm saying is I'm the worst GT content creator on the planet. I'm joking, of course. I do my best. But that's also probably why I do so few micro characters. And why when I do, they tend to be very... I mean, like, for example, with Oliver, the tiny cleric that came out just recently, he was small, but he very rarely properly addressed it. I recall when I was writing up his script, because I did actually have to make a script for him because I had no idea how I wanted him to sound, so I had to write something out to picture it in my head. But I remembered I wanted him to be a size shifter who had shifted into micro form, and I referenced it so few times that by the time I got to the end of the audio, like the end of the script, I'd forgotten that I'd had him shifted, so I had to actually go back in and add more. It tells that he was tiny, so... And that to say, yeah, I feel like it's just easier for me to be big because you can kind of just do stuff, and when you're small, you kind of have to just have stuff done to you, or like make your own fun, I guess. Being like, oh, I'm gonna explore. I'm gonna poke people with needles or something. I don't know. Anyway. Thank you for your question, though, Zed. I do appreciate it. I appreciate your interest. Let's see. Next. Hold on. There we go. There we go. Hopefully that'll help. Next, Jenna asks, hello. I hope you're doing well, Sauce. Hope you're not working too hard. Have things been moving more smoothly for you since your last Q&A update? I commend you for making such awesome audios while battling life and its meteors. Remember to take care of yourself. I know you said it's easier said than done. Or I know it's easier said than done. First off, thank you very much for the kind words. I really do appreciate that. Things are definitely going. I can't say they're necessarily better, but things are going and life continues on. And I have no choice but to continue on as well. Which sounds more dire than really it is. It's not a big deal. Notably, I have moved. So that's not my favorite thing, but it happened, and that comes with a lot. But we're getting through it. And I've also got audio stuff worked on. I have a lot actually worked on. This year is looking really good for my audios. I'm really pleased with that. Aside from that, yeah, I mean, life's moving along. Thank you for your concern, though. I do appreciate it. Let me see. Baby Shark asks, hi. I just wanted to ask if you'll do another Cruel Giant, because the first one was great. But maybe this time you could make him, like, really angry and not just joking. I can see about it. I'm not usually, like, particularly a fan of Cruel Giants, because I find it's really hard to balance the relaxation aspect with the cruelty aspect, you know? And being mean and angry and threatening tends to feel kind of tense to me, rather than chill. But I'll see if I can find a way to manage it. I do have a character that I'm cooking in my head who might be able to fill that role, so stay tuned for that, I guess. I'm actually, I mentioned this briefly over on my Patreon the other day, and I loathe to mention it here because it's a case of, if this doesn't actually get done, I'm gonna kick myself for mentioning it to you guys as though it's something that might actually, like, appear on the channel. But I'm fairly confident that this will appear, given the amount of work I've put into it. I am making kind of an audio series that's a little bit darker in tone. I do still plan for it to be relatively uplifting, all things considered. But from what I have right now, it is quite a bit more solemn, quite a bit more dramatic, quite a bit darker, like I said. It deals with a lot of stuff. I started it kind of as like a little self-therapy thing. Kind of just getting all my feelings out. So that's how you know it's gonna be wild. But yeah, I've worked on it quite a bit since then, and quite pleased with it. And it's yeah. So if you guys like the more dramatic stuff, there will be quite a bit of reverse comfort. It will not appear for a while, though. I don't plan for it to release until 2027, so that I can get the storyline with Clement and Shadri all wrapped up first, because I don't want that to interfere with my beautiful boys. So yeah. Let's see. Oh god, I'm gonna butcher this one. Nezuko Akatori asks, or maybe it's AKA Tori. I'm sorry. I don't know. says, hi, I have a question and slight request. Could we get a reverse comfort audio where one of the characters has a stomach ache and we try to help them? Yeah, I can see about something like that. Generally speaking, I will say, I think I mentioned this before, I'm always happy to receive requests or suggestions. I can't promise when, if ever, they will be included, but I do try to keep them in mind. And if nothing else, seeing what you guys would like to see from me helps me shape the kind of audios I make. You know, if you guys wanted to see, I guess, I don't know, a bunch of informational videos about cars, I'm not sure I could actually do that, but I'd see if I could incorporate something like that into an audio or two. Or if you guys wanted to see, you know, more belly-focused stuff, I try to do some more of that whenever I see people asking. So yeah, if you ever have a suggestion, you're welcome to ask. I can't promise that I'll do it, but as I say, I will see if I can do something like that. So thank you guys for your requests, suggestions, or so on. Let's see, next, Plant Bud asks, oh, I remember this question, this was great. How do clothes work for size shifters, specifically the shifter listener in the roommate audios? Because in one of them, the roomie, the short roomie, mentions letting the listener grow into a giant sweater. So the idea that clothes don't size shift with them left me the idea of the listener being stuck as a micro in size shifter brand underwear in the first audio, which was, in my honest opinion, very funny and also interesting. P.S. I love those audios and I hope you're doing well. Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy them. Honestly, I never really considered it, which is probably a failing on my part. But I'd say probably there is some sort of shifter brand that can grow or shrink alongside the shifter, some sort of clothing that whatever it's made out of, it can connect to the size shifter when they shift and will grow and shrink accordingly. But I feel like most clothes probably don't. It has to be a very special weave, very special material, very special fiber, or whatever. So most clothes don't. And so especially if you're a closeted size shifter, or you just don't plan to shift that often, you'll probably wear normal clothes, quote unquote, that are probably a lot cheaper as well, and also won't just out you to everyone who knows the brand. So in the short roomie's case, his roommate is a closeted size shifter. So I imagine they don't really buy size shifting clothes that much. They might have a set for just when they want to shift, but generally speaking, I don't think they do it that often, if ever, out in public or anything like that. So yeah, I don't know. That would be my best guess without having worked it into lore beforehand. Yeah, thank you for your question, Plant Bud. Let's see. Next, Kowulfi Audio asks, so about Cornelias, the cocky servitor. I can't stop listening to that audio, I love it so much. I am curious what would happen next in his story. Would he bump into the same tiny male folk again? Or another tiny folk out in the woods? Also, as cocky as he is, how friendly is he with others? Not just his kind, but also other creatures. Okay, so I will state this. I don't think I stated it very clearly last time, and I do apologize for anyone who was really confused. But Cornelias is not my character. He's just a character for a commission. But he was made by Ace Houndberry over on Blue Sky. I'll do my best to remember to link to Ace in the description. If I don't, please feel free to scream at me and say, hey, I can't find that link. So, but anyways, that in mind, because he's just like a commissioned character, he's not my character, I did really enjoy voicing him, and I'd be happy to do so again, but I don't really have much say over like when or what I'll be recording for Ace in the future. However, that said, I did take the liberty of reaching out to Ace, and he was kind enough to offer a response that I shall now read out for you lovely folks. Thanks for enjoying the audio. I'm happy you like my servitor, and I'd love to answer some of the questions you asked, even though I can't really say what's in store for future stories. Cornelias, as cocky as he is, he's rather friendly with folks. He enjoys people's company no matter who it might be. However, when it comes to people that are much smaller than him, he'll usually help them while also having his own fun with them. This primarily is swallowing them whole and teasing them during their stay. So there you go. That would be what he said. Thank you very much for your question. And thank you as well to Ace for offering such a generous response as well. It was very fast. I was not expecting it. Thank you for getting back to me so quickly. Let's see. Next, we have from the Hand Fiend. He says, "Hello, Sauce. Hand Fiend here once again to ask something purely out of curiosity and mayhaps, if you so choose, to keep it in mind for future ideas. How do you and your characters go about helping a tiny get over their fear of extreme height differences?" With my personal experience as a Hand Fiend, I know what I would ask for when it comes to dealing with size-based fears. I always felt curious about that scenario and would love your take on it. As someone who is constantly obsessed with wholesome size scenarios, this one I feel is an underrated one. Same with helping a tiny individual going through a fear of storms. Sorry for the rambling, I love your content. First off, no worries for the rambling. Second off, this is the second time this audio that I've realized I completely missed the mark on the question. I thought initially you were asking about a fear of heights, not a fear of height differences. So you know what, we're just gonna keep going with it. I will generate more responses. You know, the nice thing is, I mean, honestly, when it comes to the stuff I've written down, it was already in my head to begin with. I just had to get it out. So, let's see. For myself, of course, if I were to meet a micro, or if I were to be a giant, I feel like my thing would be kind of like when you have an animal. This is a bad start. When you have an animal and it's kind of afraid of you, so you kind of like sit down and you're very still and you kind of offer like a hand out to it to let it see if it wants to sniff you. I feel like I would probably do something like that. Just kind of like relax, let them kind of explore me at their own pace. And if they wanted to explore further and, you know, like maybe crawl on top of me or, you know, just kind of see what I'm about, I'd let them. And if they didn't want to, you know, I'd let them go in peace. I feel like Clement is very similar in that regard. Clement is very much a person where he doesn't like to force people to do things they don't want to do unless it's like of dire importance. So assuming it's not of dire importance, like, you know, if they don't hop into his hand, they will be crushed by a building or something. Assuming it's something kind of just chill, I feel like he would probably maybe sit down or maybe lay down, make himself as low to the ground as possible to kind of help that difference of size and of having to like look up at someone. If you can kind of keep your head a bit more down, I feel like that might help someone. I feel like he would probably look at the situation like if he can make himself lower to the ground and he can really show that like he's not all that different, you know. I feel like that would be how he would approach it, would be kind of just let them see that he's not as scary as he first seems to be. So let's see. Rybeck, I imagine, would be kind of similar. I feel like the thing with Rybeck is he's very careful and very caring and very much wants to make sure everyone's happy as they can be. So I feel like if someone was like scared of him, like if someone saw him and was like, oh gosh, you're so big and scary, I feel like he would probably back off quite a bit and perhaps kind of display that he is, much like them, kind of unaware of the situation. Like, obviously he's dealt with micros before, but showing that, like, oh, you're not the only one who can be scared of this situation. I, too, am a bit nervous because you're not someone I'm usually around. You aren't the person I'm like, you're not the kind of personality I'm usually dealing with small people. So I'm going to, like, stand back, show that I also care. And I also can feel the things you feel. It's not just I'm big and scary, you're tiny and afraid. It's both of us can kind of be afraid of this. And it's not necessarily the size difference, the fact that I'm big and you're small. It's the fact that this is a new experience for us. And that's, like, I think how he would approach it is kind of going from the direction of, with Clement, with, well, if the problem is me being big, how do I make myself seem less big? And for Rybeck, I think he would try to sympathize a lot more and be like, well, if the problem is you're afraid of this thing you don't understand, then let me show you that I can also be vulnerable so that we can kind of connect through that. Shadri, of course, has magic. So, he can kind of solve it in a number of ways, either making the person, making the person big, making the other person small, making himself small, showing that, like, at the end of the day, size difference is just a difference in size. But outside of magic, assuming this was a case of, someone spots him on the street and he's kind of caught unawares, doesn't have time to prepare, I feel like he would probably... I feel like what he would probably do is kind of like crouch down and like slowly approach. Kind of like a, if I'm like 20 feet away, I don't seem that big to you, right? Because I'm far away. And 20 feet away is close to 19 feet away. And 19 feet away might as well be 18 feet. And kind of like working them closer and closer together, to kind of, in a similar way to Clement of, if I'm low to the ground, I don't look quite so intimidating. Having that kind of perspective of, if I'm big and you're small, then if you can see me as something aside from just monstrously big, then we can work towards you being more and more comfortable with me being more and more big. I also imagine that he would probably, if they wanted, probably pick them up and show, like, if I hold you above my head, I look small because I'm shorter than you now. I'm like, my eye level is under your eye level. So really, it's not about size at all, because you could be looking down at me or you could be looking up at me. And I'm a nice person, so yeah. I don't know, Shadri's one of those ones, I'm never quite sure how he would react to most things. He's kind of just very relaxed, so I never quite know how he'd actually handle stuff. With Hugh, oh god. The thing is, I could see him going at this from one of, like, two extremes. With, like, the first one being, like, just the ultimate caring sweetheart. I think the thing is, does he realize the Tiny is afraid or not? Like, genuinely. Because if he realizes the Tiny is genuinely afraid, it's going to be a perspective of he's very sweet. He's very loving, very gentle, very, geez, hey, it's okay. I'm not a problem, okay? Like, I'm just this big so I can help people like you. Very loving. I feel like if he does not realize the Tiny is genuinely scared, it's going to go horribly. Because if he presumes they're just like putting on an act, then he'd be like, oh yeah, like you're so afraid of me because I'm so big and you're so puny. And then by the time he realizes they're not laughing at his jokes, he'd probably be like, oh fuck, I've messed up. So I feel like, but yeah, I think either way, like the illusion of choice, it comes back to just him being like sweet and wholesome and like, all my size is for the benefit of you. And however you need it to be used, I am here for you. So yeah, I don't know too much about the other boys. I think for sure Nathan would be very, if it's a micro that he isn't trying to punish, because he does tend to shrink people to punish them, but he also sometimes shrinks people for their enjoyment. So if it's that, or if it's just like a micro who's maybe never like been around big people, he will tend to be very sweet. I imagine he kind of approaches it, whereas Hugh and Rybeck are very much, like, I want you to understand that, like, I'm here for your benefit. I feel like Nathan would approach it very much more like, I guess, downplaying the difference. Very much like, oh, you're here, maybe at this bar, maybe you're outside this general store, like, want me to get the door for you? And then if they're like, you're like, hey, it's okay. I go to new places sometimes too, this is a new place, it can be kind of jarring. You want me to help you out? Maybe I can take you around, I can show you some things. I think he really wouldn't address the elephant in the room like everyone else. I feel like the way he would approach it would be, the less he addresses, like, oh, because you're small, the better. If he can simply approach the issue as like, you're just new, you're doing this new experience, you're in this new place, whatever, then it's mitigating the thing that's so scary. If it's not, well, let me help you up on this table because you're small, I don't want you getting stepped on. If it's not that, if it's just, oh, here, come sit with me. Here, let me help you up. You wanna order something? They have some good drinks here. They have some good food here. Whatever you want, I'll make sure they get it for you. I feel like he would approach it from that angle of, there's nothing to worry about if there's nothing to worry about, I guess. So yeah, I don't know about the others. If you have anyone in particular you'd like to hear from, feel free to let me know. I'll think on it. It's something to consider. Yeah. It'd be nice. I might. What I could do in theory is take the answer I did for this about the fear of heights and put it on my Tumblr. I'm advertising. Go check out my Tumblr. But yeah, I could do that in theory. Kind of was taking a little bit of inspiration from the answers I gave for the fear of heights, for fear of height difference, because they're kind of similar. Yeah, but yeah, if you'd like any particular characters, or if you would like to know their opinions on handling things in a certain way, I think you should ask. I'd love to hear it. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate the question, Hand Fiend. Okay. Oh my god. How have I been going for nearly 40 minutes already? Goodness gracious. I just ramble too much. Okay. Let's speed run the rest of this. I'm kidding. I'm not going to do So next, Tiger Gamer asks, this is probably going to sound boring compared to my previous questions, but what does the purple sauce taste like? Forgive me, I've been curious about this since the August Q&A, but I thought I'd wait a bit before bringing it up again. How nice, April. So first off, not boring at all. I think this is quite funny, actually, so thank you for asking. I do have like a general flavor profile, but I don't think I really have an exact flavor. I think, to a certain degree, it's kind of whatever you want it to be. Similar to how my characters and the people I create, the worlds I create, are kind of whatever you need them to be. So, the sauce that makes up all of my characters is whatever you want it to be. However, if you want to know my personal opinions, prepare to be very grossed out. So for me, it's probably like a very savory flavor. I like to think it's pretty herbal, not like spicy, not really like salty. But it has like a light kick to it. Like my only thought that I can think of would be like roast chicken with rosemary, or like a turkey leg. But I feel like the concept of that flavor being on your tongue when you like take a lick or a sip or whatever of this like gooey, viscous purple liquid, I feel like that's probably very unappetizing. I feel like the appetizing answer would be like, oh, it probably tastes like wine. Or, if you want to be like a bit wild with like, oh, it tastes like a sour gummy or something. Or it tastes like, I don't know, anything that purple would taste like. Not like ube. That's like the popular thing right now, right? The popular purple flavor is ube. But yeah, I don't know. For whatever reason, I've just like always considered it to be like tasting quite similar to like roast chicken. I don't know. Sorry. I'm sorry, that's probably so gross. Thank you for your question, though. I'm sorry I can't give a more satisfactory answer. Okay. Changing gears, shifting gears. Tabbycat94 asks, is Clement's Journey going to be an audio series? So first off, I feel so bad. I've had so many people ask if he's coming back, begging to bring him back. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes, he's coming back. So Clement and Shadri are part of a series together this year. They are part of my big series. The idea I had back at the start of this year was that I would start doing, rather than 1 month, like cramming an entire series into a month, I would do series spanning several months, with each month having a different like big audio. Obviously, they can have multiple audios for a series per month, but if I want to do like big audios, like with multiple characters, lots of sound effects, blah blah blah, I wanted there to be just one of those a month. That way the rest can be kind of simple and I don't burn myself out really fast. So this is going to be quite the slow burn series, but they are doing a series together, and Clement's going to be going on his little journey of self-discovery, and Shadri is going to be Shadri in his absence. But that to say, this is not going to be a case of Clement leaving and then Shadri doing stuff and we not hear from Clement until he comes back. He does have a special letter scroll case that Shadri gave him, I believe. And so he's going to be writing letters to you guys. And so you will be getting updates from him throughout the year. And he will be checking in on you guys and giving updates. And yeah, so I hope you guys like the series. I'm sorry. I probably should have been like a little bit more clear on that. But yeah, no, he's just going on a little pilgrimage. He's really not sure he's who he should be right now. He wants to make sure that he is who he needs to be and who he wants to be. and that he's not stifling himself. But he will be back. I promise. I promise. That said, thank you so much, Tabby Cat, for your question. And in that same line of questioning, Mystery Poet has asked, did somebody come to protect Clement's village? Because when I explained it previously that I thought it could be a good idea, I thought I explained it pretty well and it was a really good idea. So I stumbled over myself a little bit there. Could you hear that? That was really poorly worded. On my end. Not that the question was fine. I just horribly misworded it. Anyway. So to answer your question, no, not yet. Currently, the town is still unprotected, but as the series progresses, which it will over the next several months, I'm hoping it will be satisfactory how everything turns out. So, stay tuned. That said, thank you for your question, and thank you for the suggestion. I do have plans, I promise. I will also briefly say here that this is more like an Easter egg rather than like everyone's, this is not an Avengers moment, I guess, for lack of a way to put it. I am leaving comments from various characters in the Sauceverse about goings-on in Clement's hometown that you guys might pick up and might not pick up. If you don't, that's fine. I very much want to leave the series as concise as possible. I want to keep it as nice and put together as possible. And I don't want to drag a bunch of characters in. That said, I do still plan to feature comments from people like Rybeck, Shadri, Aether, Curious Naga. I think that's everyone who's in Clement's hometown. But those people obviously are in his hometown while he's gone, and they are being affected by him being gone. So there will be some little features with that. So if you guys hear some odd comments from them in the coming months, that's why. Because I thought it'd be fun to, even though they're not directly featured in the audios, in the storyline audios, they're still getting. They're still. You're still able to see the effects of what are going on. So yeah. Let's see. Next, GB4Life asks, if size changing was a thing and you were able to become one of your characters, who would you want to be the most? This is unfair. You're cruel to me. I kind of want to be all of them, man. There's a reason I made it. Well, okay, except okay. If we're considering from the angle that I'm just transformed into them, and now I just am them. I have their life, I have their personality, I have all their stuff going on with them. I feel the Curious Naga would be fun because he's big and he's long and he can eat people. And he can keep people cozy, which I think is awesome. Plus, he has no drama going on in his life. And I love that for him. He's so far disconnected from all the other plots that literally outside of just oh, I guess some things are happening elsewhere. He's just living his best life. I love that for him. Alternatively, I do feel and this is probably a effed up thing for me to say, I do feel Shadri could be nice. He's gotten some development. He's not working himself nearly as hard as he used to. He's got some stuff to work through still, but he is working through it. Plus, he runs a magic shop, and that's awesome. And he wears such fun outfits too. I don't know. He'd be fun to be. Aside from that, I'd be tempted to say maybe Okay, I would say like Nathan or Hugh, but I feel like they're both like just going through a lot. Like they have a lot of inner turmoil. Oh, you know what? The short roomie, I think, because he's not a size changer himself, but he is size changer adjacent because he has his roomie. I think that could be fun. Plus, I think he does have like an overall quite positive relationship with his roommate now that they've overcome this burden of this secret being kept between them. So maybe him. But if we're just talking about the concept of like me inheriting someone's powers and appearance and not inheriting like their life along with it, Aether 100%. Like a borderline all-powerful mage who can change form at will. Sign me the fuck up, my guy. I love that. All right. Thank you so much for your question, though, GB for life. Appreciate you. Let's see next. Zoara asks, if there was a size difference based game, what genre would you want it to be? How would you want the game to play outside of genre? That is a really tough question, honestly. Obviously, there are a few games that already feature some degree of size difference as their like main draw. Pikmin, Small Saga, Katamari, Small Land Survive the Wilds, Property Damage. All of those contain some level of size difference, and they all feature some pretty varied gameplay as well. So, that to say, I don't think there's a particular genre that you couldn't say size difference works in. Or that, like, it would work best in. Like, you could argue, like, oh, well, size difference, the whole point is the interactions, so a visual novel or something of the like would be best, so that you can see the interactions, blah, blah, blah. But, like, I don't think that's necessary. I think it's the easiest, because you can kind of just write stuff. As long as you know how to write things, you're probably set. I say, having made a few text adventures in my own time, and I started working on a visual novel and then stopped because I got bored. So, like, I don't know what I'm talking about entirely, but I do know something of what I'm talking about. That being said, if you make visual novels, first off, please share them. Share them the fuck with me, dude. But also, let me know if I'm wrong in that. Let me know if there's a lot more to visual novels than just making art and writing. Anyways, got off topic. Personally, I am very fond of story-driven games. I don't tend to care for sandbox games as much as games that feature like a distinct end. I feel like it helps me kind of figure out when to stop, I guess. It helps me kind of maintain interest because I know there's something more going on than just play till you get bored. I also think that a GT game should definitely feature some distinct interactions between giant and tiny. Just having it be like, oh, well, there is a giant, there is a tiny. No. You have to have them interacting. I'm probably going to butcher this name, but Militioner, or Militioner, that does have some pretty nice interactions between the game's like main antagonist being like a giant policeman and its protagonist being like just a normal person who's being held prisoner on this like island. So that in mind, like, I thought those was cool, and I'd like for other GT games to feature that kind of stuff as well. So, with these in mind, I actually thought about this quite heavily beforehand. So, I have an idea. Management sim, right? It gives you the ability to kind of play as long as you want. You can take the story as slow or fast as you want because it's management, with some 3D platforming. told from the perspective of a micro. Okay, bear with me, bear with me, bear with me, bear with me, bear with me. So you're running an apartment complex for macros. You can specify either they're giants, they're humans, they're demi-humans, whatever. So you have this apartment for macros, and you have a macro assistant, and you are a micro. So I'm imagining there'd be like 2 phases of gameplay. So in the first phase, basically your assistant would share some notes about like, hey, your current residents want XYZ. I was walking around, I noticed QWR. Whatever. So you'd have like their notes, and you'd also have some like general notes that like your character would like set up as like goals or immediate needs. Like, build a fountain would be like a big goal, versus like fix the plumbing would be like an immediate need. So in this first phase, you would keep track of that. You'd keep track of finances, general upkeep. You could hire workers. You could build new apartments, build niceties, facilities, like I said, statues, fountains, little park area with seating, or like a pool, a tennis court, stuff like that. Basically building this like, and in this setting, I'm imagining it's one of those idyllic things where living in this super nice apartment complex is not atrocious and elite. It's just like you just want to pamper your macros. But yeah, and then you can also like upgrade your office to feature more stuff. So like stuff that will help you in the second phase of gameplay. And all of this is to keep your residents happy. And you'd have like specific residents. I'm thinking maybe there would be like some kind of randomized residents that would just kind of like show up and be like, kind of random faces to say, hi, I want a place. And then you'd like give them a place. But then after a few like randos, you'd start getting these distinct residents with their own aesthetics and different storylines to follow for each of them. And as you like improve their living spaces, and I'm imagining this would not be one of those like mutually exclusive things, like the goth wants you to build a poetry room and the jock wants you to build a gym in the same area. It's like you could have both. It's just who you want to like, who you want to please first. Or you don't have to please all of them if you're like, I don't care about you. Anyway. So you'd have these different macros. They'd have their different aesthetics, their different storylines you could follow. And basically it would be one of those like, as you make them happier and improve their lives, they start opening up. And I'm imagining this would be kind of like a 2D space, where you could like switch through different screens. One would be like kind of like blueprint of your own office to show you like the stuff you can build. One would be like kind of similar to like the Tomodachi Life, like hotel apartment space where you can like add rooms, build onto them, whatever. Or like something, if you want to do it like really crazy, you could have it be like you actually like place down the rooms, build the different floors, stuff like that. You could do something like that as well. I don't know exactly, but that's the basic concept. You could improve your office, the complex, then like specific rooms within the complex. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is where the 3D platforming comes in. Basically, occasionally you would get called in to handle little problems around the complex. Either like one of the rooms or around the grounds, blah, blah, blah. And at first, you just like chat with your assistant, basically like getting to talk with them and like get to know them a little bit. You'd have like little conversations, like them being like, so, like, how's it going, boss? I was actually training for like a marathon or something. You could bond with them, and you could have them, like you could kind of, I'm thinking similar to like, what is it, The Last Guardian, I think it is, where you have Trico. You can kind of like direct him around. Similarly, you can like order around your assistant to like lift you up places, or like help you access things that you can't, like help you open doors, help you move large pieces of furniture, help you do whatever. And basically it would be like you'd fix whatever the issue is. Like, oh, I dropped something in the grass, I can't find it. Or, you know, there's a leaky pipe, you need to come get it. Or there's something in the vent, whatever. And basically you would have your assistant. And then sometimes you would be able to go into like the specialized tenants' rooms, like the unique ones. And they'd be like, hey, I need your help with this. You know, I need some help locating this thing. Or can you come check this, like, weird sound I keep hearing? Or whatever. And instead of talking with your assistant, you'd get to have them help you out and talk with them and like continue their storyline and give them like advice and stuff. So yeah, that would be like the second version of the gameplay. So at first you'd have like this place you're like upkeeping, and then you go into this like space where you get to have these giants like help you out. And of course, you know, different personalities would do different things. If you want to be like really crazy, then like every giant would have a different kind of like command ability. Different like personalities would be like lead to different like actions being available. Like, you know, the jock can help pick stuff up more easily, or like, you know, the painter maybe can like see you from farther away or hear you from farther away. I don't know. The point being, yeah, that would be my idea. That's the game I want. Make it for me. Chop chop. Oh God, it's been an hour. I'm on page 6 out of 8. I have so much more to say. Okay. So, thank you for your question, Zora. I hope you guys like that idea. Yeah, I think it'd be a fun game. I just think it'd be neat. Okay. Let's see. Next, Anime Jace asks, which of the boys gives the best uppies? I think it really depends on your preference for uppies, honestly. But I think, you know, to no one's surprise, probably the gentlest boy would be Ryback, followed shortly by Clement. And then, like, probably, like, Hugh after that, I think. I think the only person you really wouldn't want uppies from would be, like, Aether or Atos. Because, like, Aether isn't a people person, and Atos likes doing DIY pest control. But yeah, Ryback, Clement, and Hugh are all good at really kind and gentle uppies. And then like everyone else I think is kind of just what flavor of uppies you prefer. You know, do you want like mean uppies? Do you want like casual uppies? What kind of uppies is your flavor of uppies? Let's see. Thank you for your question, Jace. Next, I'm going to pair these two questions together because I think they work well. So Blue Raptor 87 asked, would you do a face reveal, and if so, what milestone would you do it at? And Lane had asked, which character do you lean most towards in terms of look? In terms of looks. Sorry. If there is one, of course. So I presume by that, Lane, you meant that, like, what character do I look most like? If not, if you mean, like, just what do you prefer, like, what character do you like the best in terms of look? I will actually also answer it here, probably. So yeah. First off, with Blue Raptor's question, I'm really not sure. At this point in time, I don't really see a need to publicly show off my face, particularly because my ASMR doesn't have a visual side to it. So, you know, I think generally I'd prefer letting you guys just imagine me to be whatever you want. mask, femme, androgynous, blonde, green eyes, mustache, clean shaven. Whatever floats your boat. Um, I know this is an opinion that I've had that's changed over time. So maybe one day it'll shift back to a desire for folks to see like the real me. But for now, I don't know, I like the anonymity. Um, so yeah, I did at one point. I don't think I shared it like publicly, like on like social media, but I did share it at some point, my face, and then I later removed it because I just decided I didn't want people to see what I looked like. I wanted them to be able to just imagine me as whatever they need me to be. So yeah. That said, in regards of who looks the most like me, honestly, I really can't say that a particular character is like a good one-to-one comparison. The person whose aesthetic I most align with is probably Aether. I like their design quite a bit, but I really don't think we look that alike outside of like a few key details. Which is honestly true of most of my characters. They like all have bits of me, just with a few notable details altered. The funny thing here would be to do something completely inaccurate and be like, oh yeah, I look basically just exactly like Ross or something. And let the people who do know what I look like just scream at me for misguiding you guys. But yeah, I think if I were to have to pick, like, if two characters could have like a love child, and that be who I was, probably the best I could give you is like Aether and Clement, and then merge them together. I won't tell you how. But yeah, you merge them together, and that's kind of me. Kind of. Yeah, there we go. I'll just go with that. But yeah, thank you guys for your questions. Sorry I couldn't be a bit more satisfactory and straightforward. Unfortunately, that is the trouble of matters of taste. I tend to change my mind, so I can't just say definitively yes, definitively no. Right now, no. I'm not going to do anything like that, but maybe in the future. Maybe for like 5,000 subscribers, I'll show my face. I'll do a live ASMR. Show my face to everybody. Get me there, and I'll do it. I'm kidding. Do not hold this over me. I'm not going to this. I'm not Germa. I won't just do it. Anyways, thank you for guys' questions. Let's see, next, Trace asks, my question for this Q&A is, what was Shadri's childhood like? I'm very excited for the new series. Trace, you spoil me. So firstly, I'm so delighted you're enjoying the series and you're excited for it. I'm hoping it's going to be a good one and very satisfactory. Secondly, I don't want to share too much, but of course Shadri and Aether are siblings. Neither of them were originally named that, I don't believe. Shadri might have kept his name this long, but Aether most certainly didn't. I don't believe. But yeah, so they grew up together. They were siblings. And they lived with their mom and their dad. And the thing with them is they are of a particular like genetic mutation, but it's kind of like an arcane mutation. That to say, they were born of humans, but essentially their bodies are made out of magic. So even as little bitty kids, they had some distinct control over the arcane. But because they didn't know really how to grasp it outside of, some basic stuff, they were mostly just considered pretty normal kids, save for that. They had a very loving family. They lived in a little village together for basically their entire childhood. They had a few other kids there, but I believe their parents were not the best off. Not horrible, not like eating gruel for every meal. But money was definitely tight, food was definitely tight. Kind of one of those, they thrived off each other's love rather than their possessions. And then eventually, when, like, during his teenage years, there was a local healer that would come to their village to help others. And the healer noticed Shadri and Aether's arcane prowess and basically began training them before telling their parents, hey, you should send them off to this academy to, like, properly learn. And their parents agreed to it because they figured that was the best way to not only ensure that their kids would have, like, good lives, but also fulfilling ones. So, yeah. Thank you for your question, though, Trace. Hopefully that was satisfactory. Let's see. And for our final question, Egorbert asks, have you watched Hetalia? I love your videos. I wish you not to go bald. So you did ask a couple of questions. I liked this one because I have watched Hetalia. Some time ago, like easily a decade at this point. I watched the English dub of it with my sibling. And it was wild. But even with the dub's unique qualities, we did wind up learning quite a bit of history from it. I know a lot of people will complain that the English dub of Hetalia is very much not intended to be educational, and while I can't deny that it's not terribly educational, it does teach some things in its own way, and I support that. I love that for it. I really I do. That said, part of the reason I chose this question is because it reminded me. Back during my DeviantArt days, if that tells you how old I was, I found out about the wonder of fanfiction purely by accident. I feel like hearing that makes this story already sound quite unbelievable, but it's true. I was very young. I was not a reader. I never really have been. So, yeah, a brief aside, actually, in that regard, the first fan fiction I ever read was a lemon, because I didn't know what lemon stood for. So the title of it was something akin to, like, character X reader something birthday cake something lemon, or like lemon something birthday cake. It was something to do with, like, because it was a birthday fic, and naturally it got quite steamy. But at the time I was just like, I love lemon cake. Imagine being like served a lemon cake on your birthday. I'd love that. So I read it and was extremely disappointed by the contents of the fic, and that there was not any lemon cake. Anyway, back to the point. So yeah, I was not really a reader, so I didn't really know that fan fiction was a thing. I knew that, like, sometimes my siblings' friends who were, like, writers would write stuff about, like, I don't know, like, this is my character, and she dates the Wild Kratts or something, or, like, this is Jean-Luc Picard's cousin, and she has a ship of her own, and they go on wild adventures. Not romance, just like wild adventures. Whatever. I knew that was a thing, but I didn't know that, like, there's a such thing as fan fiction. So I was introduced to it in DeviantArt. Like I said, found out through lemons. But that being said, I was very new to fan fictions. I didn't really understand what an AU was either. So I wound up reading a fic, again by accident. I really can't, like, stress enough how much I just kind of walked into these things. I very rarely went looking for them. In fact, I think the only time I did was when a friend of mine from DeviantArt would say, "Hey, I wrote something," and I would go, "Let me go check it out," and then it would be smut, and I'd read it anyways, because my asexual ass just liked their writing and was like, "You have a very flowery way of describing things. I love that. You have a flowery way of describing someone being deflowered." Never mind. So, but yeah, I wound up finding a Hetalia fic. That's the point of this, in case anyone forgot. Hetalia, I found a Hetalia fic. It was very wholesome, actually. It was not a lemon, it was a very wholesome fic, where I think it was Italy had rescued, I think it was Germany, I presume, because they're like the typical pairing. Everyone ships them, I think. But yeah, Italy had rescued Germany from a thunderstorm, I think, and Germany was a dog. And the whole story was like told from Germany's perspective as like a non-sapient dog, just being like, "Wow, this Italy guy, he's really cool." And that was like the fic, and I thought it was very funny, but I didn't understand, because I didn't understand how like AUs worked, so I didn't understand the concept of like, this is an alternate universe where Italy's just some guy and Germany is a dog. So I was just like, okay, like, it's cute. I don't get it though. But yeah, that to say, I've watched Italia. I've watched Italia and I've read Italia fanfiction. And that is going to be on the internet forever. Yep. Thank you for asking, Ego Regbert. I appreciate your question. I hope you found the response very funny. Okay, so that would be all the questions, I believe. If I forgot any, I might scream. I don't want to have another backlog. But if I forgot them, please let me know. Put them in the comments, I will respond. Or I'll save it for next Q&A. Anyways, now we get to the fun part, where I get to talk about GT tropes that I like and that you guys suggested. Again, this is a lovely thing I was trying to figure out over on my Patreon. We're still workshopping it, me and my patrons. So if you'd like to come help us, I actually have a post right now asking what you guys think. So, and now's a great time. So, but yeah, so basically have a list of tropes that you guys have suggested, and I'll give my opinions on them. So let's see. I'll list out who said what, because yeah, I feel like that's fair. I don't want to just be like, okay, well, some rando. Anyway, so Zora had suggested talking about a slow growth and outgrowing rooms, buildings, etc. It's not my favorite, but I do see value in it. I think that for me personally, the aspect of the growing is really not what I'm there for, or the shrinking really. I like being a certain size. I like either being grown or being shrunk. I'm not really a fan of the process. But that is me personally. Conversely, one of the most enjoyable audios I've ever worked on was a commission that featured slow growth. It was actually really fun. Slow incremental growth. If you, the commissioner of that audio, are listening to this, I hope you know I'm talking about you, because it was a lot of fun, and it took me forever, and I felt really bad, but I really did enjoy it. It was quite fun. So yeah, I think the thing for me is I like the interactions of things between two particular heights. So when it comes to like slowly growing bigger, slowly growing smaller, I just never quite know how to handle that. But yeah, you know what? I think it's something I should do more of, probably, right? Like if I'm struggling with it, then I need to practice. Let's see. The other question, or the other suggestion Zora gave was for semi-aware, or semi-unaware, or just flat out unaware. I actually like this quite a lot. It's hard to do in audio form, and a lot of the things I think about tend to go into audio form because obviously I do audios. But I really like unaware. I think it can be really fun to just have like this giant be like oblivious to a micro. I don't know, there's something like kind of peaceful about it. Or like especially I'm not editing it out, sorry. But especially with like semi-unaware, where it's like they're aware that you exist, but they're not paying attention to you. They're kind of just like letting you be. That is peak. I like that a lot. The idea that someone knows I'm there, so I'm not just like being a nuisance and like a pain in their ass by like causing them future distress when they realize I was there. But at the same time not like actively manhandling me or something. I like that. And vice versa. I'm very happy being just a chill giant, letting people enjoy my presence without necessarily directly interacting with them. Yeah. I like it. See, Deadly Flood asks, or suggests, size theft as its favorite of theirs. Honestly, I do like size theft. I think the thing for me is I'm very picky about it. The thing is, when it comes to size theft, I feel like the struggle that I have is it very easily falls in the category of like something unfairly happening to someone. Like, oh, I guess like, for example, like you're the bigger jock in the gym, let's say. So I'm going to siphon your height into myself. So now you're a little shorty and I'm big. That kind of stuff does kind of bug me. So I can be very picky with it. But I think when size theft is done well, especially if it's for like relaxing purposes, some of my favorite audios I've ever worked on actually, in terms of like stuff that it just felt very, very fun and very sweet, are like size theft or size exchange, I guess, audios, where one person wants to be big, one person wants to be small, so the person who wants to be big will steal the height of the person who wants to be small. Whether that be, 6 foot person wants to be 5 foot, 5 foot person wants to be 6 foot, so they swap. Or like 6 foot person, or like even like, let's say like 5 foot person wants to be 4 inches, 6 foot person wants to be 10 feet. So then they, one shrinks, one grows. I do like those because I don't know, there's something like kind of sweet about the concept of like wanting to be cherished by someone, so you willingly give them all of your size, or at least part of your size, and then conversely like wanting to protect and love someone so badly that you accept all that size. I think that's sweet. I do like that. But yeah, I'm picky, but when it's done well, I genuinely like it quite a lot. Yeah. Zed has said, I think this one's really quite interesting. I've enjoyed some content that may be a bit too meta, where the giant is a streamer and the listener is at the whims of the streamer's chat polling. I haven't actually seen this that much. I'd be interested to see more of it because, like, I think that's quite fun. I've thought of that kind of concept before because I do watch some streamers, and I think it'd be kind of funny to just be like, hey, here's my micro, guys. What do we do with them? I think it's kind of funny idea. I don't really ever see it though. I'm trying to remember, because I feel like I've seen something similar, but like I got nothing. If I think about it, if I think of it, I'll probably come back and edit this or post something somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's quite fun. Like I said, I've not seen it before, but I'd be happy to do an audio based on it. And yeah, I think that, to me, I think the concept of like not just being like two people, but kind of like letting first off, letting yourself kind of, if you're the small person in that situation, letting yourself be kind of toyed with by the masses, while also still being regulated by this person who you might know. I think that's quite interesting. And also like the concept of like being this giant in control, but then like doling out that control to your chat, who will probably be just as vicious, if not more, than you. Whether that be with affection, with teasing, with cruelty, whatever. Obviously, I tend to think in terms of like sweet stuff. But I could also see it being quite interesting for like some cruelty stuff, like, you know, giant kidnaps some sort of tiny for some evil streaming purposes. There's always the option in the polls that the tiny gets to go free and live their life again. But every time the chat never chooses it because they just want to watch this poor tiny get further bullied. So I can see that being both quite fun in like a wholesome and in a very unwholesome way. Yeah. Thank you for enlightening me. Let's see. Kieran had a few. Which was, let's see. I'd like to hear your thoughts on at least some of these. I will give all. Let's see. Bully and bullied. What is the like reverse of bully? I guess it would just be like bully. Anyway, get the idea. Bully, bullier, and bullied. GT scenarios. I think they can be quite fun. I'm a bit fucked up in that way. But I like it in two ways, right? I worked on something for a while and I kind of gave up on it. I do want to return to it someday, but I don't know. I had the concept of basically the idea of this person, usually the big guy, bullies this little shrimp of a listener. Basically is like, you know, I'm better than you, I'm superior to you, blah blah blah. And then because they're both mages, one day he's like experimenting with magic and he shrinks himself, and the listener comes along and basically like actively chooses to show him kindness. And you know, he's expecting the same treatment right back. You know, well, all those times you called me a bitch, well, now who's the bitch? And instead, the listener, who has been actively choosing to be nice this entire time, and not, you know, not provoke, not attack, shows him grace and is like, hey, keep this in mind next time. But I'm not going to hurt you because you don't deserve to be hurt. Nobody does. And like from that point on, the bully like has a change of heart. I thought that was a cute storyline, and I want to get back to it because I thought it was cute. But anyway, if it's the reverse as well, I do tend to like it still. Obviously, like, you know, depending on the cruelty level, it can be more or less my speed. But like, especially if it's, I think I heard it put one time, I prefer like unwilling tinies or micros who are like just super flustered and unsure of what to do with themselves over like unwilling tinies who are like angry and scared and in pain and stuff. So yeah, but if it's like that, where it's like the bullies being like, yeah, shrimp, you little dweeb, it's like, that's great. Versus when they're like, you know, stop crying, you only stepped on your leg or something. That's a bit fucked up, but you know, I tend to think of it as like a little bit less harsh than that. Anyway, still very good when done well, I would say. Other one is boss and employee. I tend to like those as well. You know, I've considered those as well a couple times. I tend to be quite casual with them, I find, but that's because I like the concept of like a world where giants and tinies work in tandem easily, rather than, you know, they're having to like struggle to cooperate. But I like that idea, either as like a tiny boss with their giant employees, or their giant boss and tiny employees, or like one tiny employee or one giant. I think that's cool. I like them. Next, spec-sized tinies was another one. I don't. This is a massive shame, because I know quite a few tinies who like being as small as possible, and I don't tend to care for it. I feel like after I like my tinies at an interactable size. So when you get below like an inch, I tend to stop understanding what to do with you. And especially when it starts being like teensy weensy little dust particle, I'm like, I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to interact with that. I don't know how to handle it. Obviously, if you like that, that's fine. If you like any of these things, that's fine. But yeah, same thing kind of with like really, really big giants, like two sizes listed here, like city or planet. When it comes to like city-sized giants, I can kind of deal with it, because it's like, you know, you're as big as a city, but you can still like in theory have people like crawling on you, or you can like, in that regard, you're big enough to like you can pick up entire buildings, so you're not necessarily interacting with like the micros, you're interacting with the micro buildings. So I can kind of see that one. But generally speaking, if one party is so much smaller than the other that they are barely perceptible, I just don't know what to do with that. I think the one time I really enjoyed it was the little like the giant nerd series I did, which I'm sorry that went up on my Patreon. I don't mean to like talk about it too much, but I had this character who had shrunken like an entire like tiny little civilization, for like scientific purposes. But then like it kind of became a thing where like he had a group chat with them and they could message him, and he just became a little bit disillusioned with it, but kind of was just like chill with it. That was kind of funny. I did like that one. But yeah, generally speaking, I just struggle when it comes to like super duper tiny or super duper big, because my brain doesn't cope well. Let's see. Giant bodyguard or knight or protector scenarios. Yes. That is my shit. I love that. I don't even, the weird thing is I haven't even done anything like that before. Not really. But it is genuinely one of my favorite things. Like, I love it when you have this giant who's devoted to you for some reason or another. That's great. Devoted to protecting you and keeping you safe. Sign me up. Let me be that giant. Let me be taken care of by that giant. I love that. Sorry, I'm trying to be very relaxing, and I don't think I am. I think after the 1 hour mark, I just get very goofy. I'm just gonna be here forever. Anyway, this audio is gonna be 2 hours long, isn't it? No, we'll get through. Let's see. The next ones were shrunken cities. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know quite how that's different from like the big giant versus city. My guess is like the concept of like it's a civilization that's tiny, which like I do like that. Actually, in the Sauce verse, the way that it works is like the architecture is built so that you have like the normal sized things, the human sized things. I'm sorry, it's very disrespectful, I'm sure. You have like the human sized things, and then you have the micro sized things that are built into it. So you need to have like a brick wall that's thick enough that then the tinies can live in like tiny apartments or something in the walls, or they can visit like their own micro food store built into the actual food store. I think that's neat. I don't know if that's what you were talking about. You also might be talking about the concept of like an entire city being like shrunken through an effect of something. Like a shrinking like nuke goes off and it like shrinks an entire city or something. In that regard, I don't think I really have opinions, because I feel like at that point it's kind of just like, well, enough of it got shrunken that life can kind of continue on as normal. Unless you mean like a terrarium, in which case I have done that before, and I did actually like that. That was a fun thing. Referencing what I said earlier with the giant nerd. Yeah. Sorry. Unaware, spoken about that briefly. I do like Unaware. I don't do it in audios because I never know how to like actually handle Unaware in an audio, aside from just to be like, where could the listener be? I sure don't know. But I do like Unaware as a concept. Let's see, role reversal, particularly like big people shrinking. This one is a lot like size theft. I like it, but I'm very picky. My trouble is usually I find the role reversal tends to be unwilling and usually not entirely deserved. Which is something like looking back, it's something that I would probably change if I were to redo the short Rumi series, or like his introductory audio, is like the Rumi, the listener Rumi, the size shifter, is usually taller than him, and in a moment is shrunken smaller than him, and he like takes full advantage of that, and like teases them, taunts them, threatens them a little bit. Never actually goes through with anything, but it's like his reasoning for it, of course, is he's like, well, you teased me a long time for being taller than me, when you literally aren't. You have a fluctuating size that you just actively make taller than me. So you're not actually taller, you're just faking it, or you're just choosing to be so you can make fun of me. But I think even with that, it's like that doesn't constitute the actions taken. And so similarly, if it's like, you know, oh, there's this like cocky gym bro, and so you shrink him, and then you like step on him, and you call him a loser. It's like, well, did he deserve to be like? Did he deserve a little bit of humility? Yes. Did he deserve like humiliation? Maybe not. So yeah, I think but when it's done well, especially like if it's willing, 9 out of 10 times I like it. There's an artist, oh god, I don't remember their name, but they did something recently where the usually large character, Shadri, I think is how you pronounce her name, like got to be like the like comparatively small one to the tiny Obi, I think is his name. Hopefully that's enough for you guys to identify them. I'm so sorry, I did not come into this thinking about their art, but they did a few where he's the big one and she's the smaller one, and it's quite wholesome, quite cute. And I really like their dynamic in general. But anyways, like, I think that's cute when it's like clearly willing, clearly, or like even if it's not like willing, even if it's like they don't like and go into this intending like both of them to be like, oh, I'm gonna swap sizes with you or gonna do whatever. I still like the concept if it's clear that both people enjoy it. But I find that if one side clearly doesn't enjoy it for whatever reason, there has to be a really damn good reason why it happened anyways. Otherwise it tends to not please me. I guess is the best way I can put it. Yeah. That same thing as size theft, role reversal, anything where it's like two people kind of change their usual dynamic to be reverse of what it usually is. I feel like there has to be some level of, even if it's like, I like this, but I'm too bashful to admit it, I need to have the confirmation that both parties like it. Otherwise, it does kind of bug me a little bit. Or a lot, but... and Kieran's the last one was putting people in jars or under cups. Honestly, I think it's a funny trope. I think it's goofy. I think it's one of those things, if you have never included someone getting put under a jar or in a jar or under a cup or something like that, can you really call yourself a GT creator? So what I'm saying is I need to put more people under cups so I can be a better GT creator. Yeah, thank you for your thoughts. And then the last person to suggest one was, I think it's pronounced Geb. It could be pronounced Jeb. It's with a G-E, so it's one of the two. But Jeb said, I'd love for you to explore a frat character. Maybe someone a bit more arrogant than Hugh, or like a classic trope, like a giant that lives in the clouds. Like kind of a medieval character. I'd love to do those, honestly. The big thing with the frat bro is I did actually have the concept at one point of introducing the listener to Hugh's friends, his frat bro friends, and basically having like an initiation where you get to meet all of them, and like as part of quote unquote hazing, each one of them would get you for a day. So you'd be like a micro trying to join this mostly non-micro frat, and each one of them would get you for a day to do whatever they wanted. And so you'd have like, you know, the nice ones, the cocky ones, the chill ones, the mean ones. But ultimately what it occurred to me was that if I were to make like 5 different jock frat bro characters, my channel would be so full of them and not much else. But I do think that maybe finding like one, instead of having like an entire like frat, maybe having like just one, and maybe having the other characters get referenced or briefly make cameos every so often, I think that could work. I think that'd be cool. To have like a little bit more expansion for Hugh, but also kind of letting Hugh fill more distinctly that role of like teasy but loving, and then letting someone else kind of take over the role of like more like a little bit more like arrogant, a little bit more like, yeah, I deserve to be big and you deserve to be at my mercy. I think it could be fun. And I do also want to do like medieval like fantasy giant stuff. I don't know why. I have ideas for like medieval fantasy stuff. I think part of it is just I get kind of caught up in the concept of doing stuff for the sauce verse. You know, that being like Clement's Town and Hugh's Town and Nathan's Town and all those characters in between. that I feel like I kind of get caught up in that, and then I forget that I can literally just do whatever the hell I want. And that includes characters that don't fit in the world I've already established. So, yeah, that being said, I would like to do those characters. Those I think are fun tropes. Very fun. Fee fi fo fum. I think those character tropes are fun. There's a train outside again. We're going to go with it though, because this is nearly 2 hours long. I've spent over 2 hours recording. I want to be done. So, that is all these suggestions. What are some things that I personally like? I think the trouble is I don't know any like trope names. I don't know if tropes even really have names for GT, but like one of the ones I really like is tinies or micros being forced to trust macros. Like, for whatever reason, like there's a storm outside, like a snowstorm. The tiny can't leave this giant's house because if they do, they'll freeze to death. So they're forced to take refuge in this giant's abode. And the giant is now aware that they're there and wants to help. But the tiny, of course, is like, no, I can't. That's illegal. But they have to. Or like, the giant wants to assist them because they like are injured. But of course the tiny is like maybe a bit hesitant, maybe a bit scared. Maybe the giant is the one who hurt them in the first place without realizing it. Like an unaware to aware situation. But now the giant wants to make amends and the tiny has no choice. I think that kind of stuff is cool because it forces characters together without necessarily making it like, I guess, for lack of a better put it, like super duper, like sugary sweet. Like, I usually am so scared of giants, but you're the one giant that I'm willing to be around and just trust unconditionally. Which, like, that's fine as well. That's also a fun trope, but I feel like oftentimes I personally make stuff with that in mind, like no matter what, the tiny will always be comfortable. So having the concept of like this smaller person who does not necessarily want to be around this bigger person is now forced to be around them. I do also, here's a weird one. I really like mutually unwilling stuff. I think that's a good way to describe it, is like, for example, there's a scene that I have in something I'm working on. I can't explain the full concept of it, but basically, two people are learning to trust each other. One of them is usually small, one of them is usually big. However, the big one shrinks to be super tiny against their will. The small one does not want to deal with that. But, and the usually big one is now like, oh my god, I'm tiny, I can't do anything to defend myself, and I'm still learning to trust this person, so I'm scared. And of course the usually smaller individual isn't sure how to cope with this, but like chooses to anyways. And it's like, I like that because, is it unwilling? Yes. But it's notably neither side is like pleased while the other one is not. Both sides are not pleased, which I feel like kind of evens out the concept of unwillingness. Like there's no like one person being like, help, I'm scared, and the other person being like, oh, this is perfect. I also really, really, really like bashful giants. I think they're cute. It's one of the reasons why I like Ryback so much, because he's just a little bundle of fluff, and he loves being around tiny people. He would do it all day if he could, I feel. But yeah, he's a very like sweet giant, and he has grown with confidence as the years have passed. But he is still like really sweet, having him be all like flustered and in awe of his tiny friends. I think those I think giants who appreciate tinies, and like, rather than thinking they're like puny and pathetic and like, oh, you made this little skyscraper, more like soul scraper. It really goes up to my toe. Like, I love giants when they're like, you built this? How? You don't have any of the massive tools that I would have used. Like, I would struggle to build something like that. And I have all of this at my disposal. How did you do it? That's so neat. I love giants who just are like in love with smaller things. So yeah, those are some of my personal tropes that I like. I'm trying to think if there are any others. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. If I think of any more, I'll be sure to share them at some point. And if you guys, at nearly 2 hours into this audio, have any GT tropes you would like to share that you really enjoy, feel free to. I'll try to see if I can respond. I am very busy, unfortunately, right now. That's just my life. But like, if I see that you've shared a particular trope, I'll do my best to, at the very least, I will definitely look at it. That is something I can guarantee. I will always look at it. I always read you guys' comments. They make me very, very happy. They warm my heart. They fill it with glee. Yeah, but outside of that, I will also do my best to respond and say either, yeah, it's awesome, or what? You like that one, really? But yeah, so thank you guys so much for tuning in. My legs are in so much pain from sitting in this really uncomfortable way to keep my chair from squeaking too much. So I'm gonna go, but thanks for tuning in. Sorry this one was long. Holy balls. But please remember, you are very important. You have people who care about you. You deserve kindness and happiness. You deserve love. You are meaningful. And you deserve to feel good about yourself. If you can, before you go to bed, I would like to request that you tell yourself at least one nice thing about yourself. Something you genuinely appreciate about yourself. Whether that be something about your appearance that you really like, something about your personality that you really like, something about your hobbies, or the way you look at the world, something that you did that you're really proud of. And if you like, please feel free to tell me as well. Like I said, I can't always I can't always guarantee that I'll respond, but I will always read what you have to say. So thank you, guys. Be good to yourselves. Be good to others as much as you can. But most importantly, be good to yourselves. Because you're lovely. And you deserve it. So, sleep well.